Welcome, friends, to the Ink to Film podcast, where we read the book and then see the movie. I'm filmmaker James Bailey.
And I'm writer Luke Elliott.
And this week we're taking a week off, partially due to the holidays and partially because Luke has an exciting announcement. Instead of our normal coverage, we're going to be doing a From the Vault episode, which we tend to do, which is a previous Patreon exclusive episode. This one is on the Super Mario Bros. Movie from 1993, which we had a lot of fun with.
Yeah, so I guess first off, I'll say that I'm going to Dragonsteel Nexus. It's this coming weekend, so it's just easier to do it this way. But I'm really excited for it. I'm going to be on a few panels, hope to see people there. And if you're listening to this in the future and we met at Dragonsteel Nexus, that's awesome. Hopefully to get some new listeners while I'm there. That'll be cool. Yeah, just excited to do it, helping Fonda out. Fonda Lee, former guest. I'm gonna help her sell some books on the convention floor, which I've never done before, so that'll be interesting to do.
Sounds like it's going to be a hell of an experience. I've said it in multiple episodes now, but anyone who's heard knows that I'm jealous of this. Sounds like an amazing opportunity, and it's going to be really cool because those tickets were so limited, and they sold out so quickly. So this is definitely like one of those big conventions to go to this year.
Yeah. So the Super Mario Brothers movie, I'm excited that this is going to see the light of day now as far as like for the general public. We recorded this back in May of 2023, but I just remember having a lot of fun with it. It's a movie that I grew up on, and I think in this one it was a lot of me trying to convince you that it was better than it seemed. So it'll be interesting to listen back to that. I think we also watched some scenes from an extended cut that I hadn't seen before, so there was some new content I didn't know about. I remember this being an enjoyable time.
Yeah, I remember the same kind of thing. This movie's wacky as fuck.
Yeah.
And just generally kind of wild. And if you're like a huge Super Mario Bros. Fan, I don't know if it's going to like hit you squarely, but I think if you did watch it in the era that it came out, it's going to give you some nostalgia, as well as like for that time period, it was like about as good as it could get as far as a video game adaptation was concerned. But man, it's loose, fast and loose with some of the lore of Super Mario Bros. And it's just,
I'm sure we'll get into all of that.
I guess it's just in the pantheon of video game adaptations, this is an interesting one to definitely talk about.
We haven't talked about many game adaptations on the pod. This is one of a few now that we have done. So that's an area that we're interested in. We play a lot of games, and it's a little different than our normal thing. So that's why we did it on Patreon. But yeah, definitely let us know if you like this sort of thing, and if there's any other video game adaptations you'd like to hear us talk about. Make sure to shoot us a note.
Well, with all that being said, we hope you enjoy this previous Patreon exclusive. This week we are doing the Super Mario Brothers movie, and it's not the one you're thinking. It's the original.
Maybe it is the one you're thinking.
Yeah.
It's the one that I think of.
Yeah. It's the 1993 film, and we're doing this kind of as an experiment here because this is a different kind of adaptation.
We've done another video game one for Scott Pilgrim, but it was like for a project we'd covered before.
Yeah.
Whereas this
and it had like an actual physical book to read, right? We read a comic.
Right.
Whereas in this case, we're just going straight off our Mario knowledge.
Right. So, I just want to ask your experience, your history with this. Do you remember when you saw it? I definitely want to talk about mine, but then also maybe share some history about Mario, the video game.
I think like many people out there, Mario means a lot to me. Like it really, really does. If I can dig up the picture, I'll send it to you, or maybe I'll post it on social media or something. I was very young, probably like 4, playing NES, playing Super Mario, and my mom bought it. Like it was my mom's system. It was her NES, and she would allow me to play it.
So, wait, it would have been regular. It would have been Mario.
Super Mario.
Is that what is it always called Super Mario? I guess it is.
Super Mario Bros. Yeah.
Yeah, because then Super Mario World. That's what I was thinking of. That was the Super Nintendo
SNES.
one.
Yeah, SNES. Yeah. So the NES was my mom's. Eventually, we got an SNES because I wanted to, get the newer, better system. But it means a lot to me because I remember playing it. I remember just how difficult it was, especially being that young and playing it, and introducing it to my brother when he was like getting old enough to play video games. And Mario is like this thing that feels like for our generation, like I think is a touchstone and kind of a like watershed, especially for Nintendo. Yeah. Watershed property that most people play.
Such an important IP, right?
Yeah, like I mean, you think of and how it recurs, and it's like it's just like Legend of Zelda. A lot of Nintendo is like known for quality, and Mario is like the pinnacle of Nintendo. You know, you get it in SNES, you get it in N64, and then in, you know,
there's always a Mario in like every new iteration.
GameCube, Wii, yeah, it's always, and then even into Switch, like Super Mario Odyssey was excellent. So it just continues to be great. And you know, with this new animated film out, I think it's funny to look back at 1993.
That was kind of my thinking. This was my idea, and I knew the new movie was coming out, and honestly, I'm not very interested in the new movie. I might watch it at some point.
Yeah.
But
I'll watch it. Yeah. I've heard good things about it. I'll watch it.
I've heard it's fine. You know, I have a soft space in my heart for this movie. So my experience with Mario in general is that the NES was our first system that my brothers and I got. And yeah, I mean, I was so young that like I could barely play a video game.
Yeah.
I think I played a little bit of Atari. My dad had Atari.
I didn't play any Atari.
Yeah, I played some Atari.
I mean, I guess I have played an Atari, but not like as my primary system.
Yeah, because I think those were the first video games I ever played, where it was like Asteroid and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then we quickly got the NES though, and that was the first system we owned. And the game that I think came with the system was Mario and Duck Hunt.
I think so. Duck Hunt, hell yeah, dude.
And we played the shit out of those two games. And so yeah, I had the soft space. And then like 1993 is when this movie comes out. I don't remember if I saw this in the theater. I don't think I did. Yeah. But I must have seen it soon after it came out on home video.
Let's also put this into context. Like, how old are you in 1993?
8.
Yeah, and I was born in 1993.
Okay. Yeah.
Great year.
Yeah, I saw this when I like shortly after it came out. I think we rented it probably as soon as it came to the movie rentals because that was big back in the 90s. I remember renting this movie and watching it, and I had I had such fun with it as an 8-year-old, and it's such a weird fucking movie. And like watching it this time, I'm like, I can't believe this movie exists in so many ways.
Coming at it as a creative and an adult, I don't know what the fuck was going on, man.
Insanity, man. This movie is bonkers.
You can look around and you just know how much money is being spent on this too. Like the sets are they're extravagant. The costuming is ridiculous. Some of the animatronics and effects are like way over the top for a movie like this. Like you're like, what? Like they spent a bundle on this film.
Yeah, I remember there's a lot of like behind the scenes stuff that we're going to get into that I'm interested to revisit because I've forgotten a lot of it, but I just know there was a lot of drama. But yeah, man, just like watching it again, I'm struck by like they don't make movies like this anymore.
No, because it didn't make money.
Probably for good reason.
Because it didn't make any money.
But also like I feel like it's something kind of like pure about it. Like looking back on it, it's like they had no idea how to make a video game movie. They didn't know what the hell they were doing. Like you could tell they didn't know what the hell they were doing. They had a property that's worth a ton of money, but they like didn't know it at the time. It was still kind of new.
Fairly new.
No one had really done video game adaptations because video games were new.
Yeah.
And they clearly didn't know what the audience was for this movie. They had no idea what they were like trying to do with it. It's a cyberpunk, like sexualized
Blade Runner. There's Blade Runner vibes in this movie.
There's tons of like insider New York City specific comedy. It's so weird, man. It's like, and it's so 90s too in so many ways.
They took the weirdest things from that property and they're like, this is what people are responding to, and we want to play up these aspects. And they were like, the game just doesn't get even what it's doing, so we're gonna like refine it and like give a story to it, and it's just like, it's fucking batshit crazy.
It's crazy, man. It's a drug trip too. It's like I don't know what the people were on who are writing this movie.
I've even heard some of the production design people say like, you know, they were intending it to be sort of this fucking psychedelic, crazy version of New York in ways, but
yeah, it's like they wanted to make a different kind of movie, and then they just were like, kind of borrowing Mario stuff to get it done. That's what it felt like to me.
You're touching on a little bit of it too, is like there were multiple scripts that came into being for this movie. And then the one that Jankel and Morton, who are partners, by the way, they're a married couple who directed this film. So Jankel and Morton went with a specific script, and then a few weeks before or a few months before they were going into principal photography, Disney acquired distribution rights and pushed rewrites and pushed all kinds of stuff to make it more kid friendly, because they were making sort of an adult comedy, like but then also serious drama, like family dynamics drama with all this crazy stuff. And then Disney was like, but it's for kids. So at the last second they're like, make it for kids, and it's like all this crazy like prostitutes and strippers and stuff are in this movie, and you're like,
and it feels like that, man. It feels like there's this adult movie that got a weird rewrite to try and make it appeal to kids. And they even like put in little sound effects from the game every now and then, like in case you didn't get it.
Yeah, I liked it when they did.
They're riding a mattress down a pipe, and it's bonkers. They're just sliding down. It's like the Mario Brothers and like 5 women, all on a mattress. And then there's
these like Goombas that look like the fucking Goombas and the Koopas, and not understanding what creatures they were apparently from the games.
Yeah,
was blowing my. They're like, they wanted everything to be dinosaurs.
Yeah,
and like they thought also.
Well, that's the whole premise of the movie, is like this alternate universe dinosaurs. You know, it's kind of fun. Like, I don't know. Like I like this kind of bonkers multiverse storytelling. You know, it's interesting to me, but it's just the execution is so wild. And they had some interesting ideas, man, with the like de-evolution, but it's so weird that they're like dinosaurs eventually evolve into human beings. You're like, what?
Yeah, what? And like, again, I never thought a Goomba was a dinosaur, but fuck, apparently they're like these weird.
Man, those Goombas, they're kind of fun. They're like they're so big. They're clearly like a person with like, you know, in a with like something over their head and then a little fake head on top. But as a kid, like I loved how like dumb they were. They were funny. The dancing.
Some of them have different heads, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. No, it's more snake-like, and like the rounder ones.
But are they like, all Goombas, or are they supposed to be different? Are they like?
I think they're all Goombas, man. I don't know, but like the dancing sequence, I always thought that was so funny. Like getting them to dance with each other. I don't know, man. It's so wild, but it's so funny.
You have enough nostalgia to make this like you're like, oh, I like it, and I don't have the nostalgia as much. Like I saw this movie, but I remember like bouncing off of it hard because I probably didn't see it when I was a kid.
Yeah, but
and so like a lot of the choices to me, I'm like, this is just fucking wild. Like, what is the point of any of this?
It like I totally grant you that it is. I just like, again, like I don't know. I'm in the space of like they don't make movies like this anymore.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is definitely that I saw it when I was at a perfect age for it, but like the idea of taking like a kid's property and just making some like bizarre gonzo drug trip of a movie like this, it's such a fun idea, and there's no way in hell it would ever happen again. So like we got to like kind of, and then like I mean we were talking about this off air, like it's hard to watch this movie. You can't stream it anywhere. You can't rent it. So, like, if you're listening to this and you own a copy, like a DVD, like, that's the only way you can watch it in the United States, at least. And I guess that's something to do with, like legal distribution stuff. I think they're probably trying to, like, make this movie go away because the new one's coming out and they don't want anybody finding this one on accident.
Because they share a name, maybe?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's interesting, the legacy of this movie, too, because there are a significant contingent of people who saw it when they were young that still love it. And there's there's this, like you said, maybe it has to do with like striking. Sometimes there's these movies that are like so bad that they're good, but I don't think this is the case in here.
I was going to say I think that probably applies to this movie because it's really not very good. Like, objectively.
I guess if you're talking about like story, but I am impressed by a lot of the effects and set work and like some of that kind of stuff.
It's so cheesy, but like endearing to me now, and that's such a fine line to walk. And I don't know why. Like, what is it, Bob Hoskins or whatever his name is Mario? Like his wisecracking New Yorker like stereotype he's doing the whole time. John Leguizamo, who is just playing the like lovable idiot the whole time, like. I don't know why this works for me, but like I don't love it, but I was having fun watching it. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. Their relationship is weird in general, also too.
He's totally like weird. Mario and Luigi Mario.
He's my dad, brother. Everyone's like,
and mother. He was my mom. You know.
Okay.
The comedy in this movie, man, it gets into such slapstick at times. Like, yeah, it's like an old like Who's on First routine when they're given the Mario name.
Yeah. Definitely see a bit of that. So the screenwriters envisioned it to be a subversive comedy influenced by Ghostbusters, and then you get kind of
oh man, I almost said Ghostbusters earlier. I was getting that. I think it's the New Yorkness of it.
Yeah,
I was getting because
part of it.
Ghostbusters is also very New York.
But think about the creatures. There's like creatures and slime, and it's taking itself seriously, but it's also comedic, and like I think they were
the effects,
in that vein too. But then you also see the influence of Blade Runner for sure, like the design in general, and it was crazy when I went looking because it's the same set designer. It's the same set like the production design from Blade Runner was on this film.
Wow.
David L. Snyder, who we talked about way back when we covered Blade Runner, was the production designer, and he talked about like some of the things that he brought from that cyberpunk like sort of city into this city, and like the two-tiered, like when they first get into Dino Land or whatever they're calling fucking Mushroom Kingdom.
Yeah, it's like the dinosaur Manhattan.
Dino Hatton or whatever it is. Yeah, when they first get there, it's like there's like scaffolding and stuff up above, and then there's like a street below, and the way that they play with that, it feels very Blade Runner, and they're like running around and jumping off stuff, and the city's going by in the background.
Man, I can't believe they did it. It's so funny. And so Koopa, and like I don't know if this is like any sort of plan by them, but watching it now, King Koopa is like a Donald Trump.
It's
He's Donald Trump.
Yeah, it wasn't. So I think that people say that it's inspired from Donald Trump.
It's got to be, right? He's this big New York, like the king of New York developer.
He's got crazy hair.
Yeah, he's got crazy blonde hair. He wears a suit all the time. He's an asshole. Like, yeah.
He seems like a Donald Trump.
He loves authoritarian politics and being a dictator, which is insane because this is 1993. So it's pretty wild. But I actually kind of loved like some of the themes of this movie ended up being kind of cool, like anti-authoritarian stuff, and the idea that the two henchmen who get like educated through evolution and they become intelligent. I love that it turns them into like anti-fascists.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
They can like see it now. They're like, "Oh, fuck you! You're trying to oppress the proletariat."
Yeah, it's awesome.
I got like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern vibes from them a little bit.
I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and then early on, of course, they're again like a sketch routine of sketch comedy of just being like too idiotic to
vaudeville.
To
vaudeville slapstick kind of. Yeah.
So what do we want to talk about, man? Like how weirdly sexual this movie was.
Yeah, it really is, and I don't know, reframing it and having it center like Luigi and Daisy is kind of weird, and there's like the mob is trying to take down like a bunch of students that are digging fossils and stuff. Like
yeah, that was weird, right? Yeah, King Koopa's being super rapey towards the princess.
Oh yeah.
Basically blatantly so. There's just so much sexual stuff, like the whole sequence in the club, and then like the red woman, I don't know what that you would call her, but wearing the red outfit, and like Mario like seducing her basically to like steal the thing back.
He's like taking the meteor off of her
and his teeth.
Oh my god, yeah, that was so crazy. Oh, he put it in his mouth.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just not putting a meteor in my mouth personally, meteorite. So how do you think we got this film? Like, you think of Nintendo now, and they hold the property very close to their chest, right?
Yeah. This was some of this background that I vaguely remember that there was some drama around this. So you just gotta share it with us.
Sure. So basically, Roland Joffe is a producer who wanted to get the rights to it, and he approached Nintendo. And basically, in meeting with them and telling his vision and that kind of thing, Nintendo gave him free creative license to say, like, they felt that the property was strong enough to stand on its own, that it could handle being like experimented with, basically. And they were like, let's see what the Americans will do with given free reign on Mario, and they just like let him go to town with it, and it goes into production. And originally they're planning to have kind of more serious tone, and then they were going, oh, let's go more comedic, and then the notes came in that it needed to be for kids, and then like it started to build up to what we got. But man, it's crazy to think of Nintendo who will take down people's YouTube videos for playing their games.
So
and stuff.
At some point they like tried to back out, right? I thought there was something like they saw early screeners or something. At some point, they
So they were fine with it throughout. It wasn't until later that they were basically saying like, you know, it was interesting to see what they did with it, and they were very respectful. Like that's what the filmmakers have said throughout is like they never heard any bad things from Nintendo or anything like that, but they basically were nobody's touching Nintendo stuff anymore. Like that was like taken back from them very quickly. Shinjiro Miyamoto said, in the end, it was a very fun project that they put a lot of effort into. The one thing that I still have some regrets about is that the movie may have gotten a little too close to what the Mario Bros. Video games were doing. And in that sense, it became a movie that was about a video game rather than an entertaining movie in and of itself.
I guess that's a read on this movie.
Yeah. So I think it's just being very respectful, and it's interesting though because like there have been like former Nintendo of America president Reggie Fils-Aimé said, quote, the movie left a really bad taste in the mouth of our developers, and that he heard horror stories about its production from Nintendo employees. So Reggie Fils-Aimé wasn't there when it was in development and released, but he was very notably, I think, beloved by gamers in general. Reggie Fils-Aimé said that basically Nintendo were like, it was horrible, and there was a lot of crazy behind the scenes, and Nintendo employees have horror stories about it and stuff. So it's just, you know,
I don't know if it was the production, like something happened in production where it was like they were trying to stop.
Trying
to stop what was happening, right?
Yeah, on the American side, on the funding, like the people who were funding the film were like they were stopping and starting basically because like they were getting footage and it wasn't matching what they wanted, and there was rewrites constantly all throughout. From executives and from the filmmakers, and the filmmakers were pushing back because they wanted to make an edgier adult film, and again the executives wanted it to be for kids, and so constant rewrites, and all of the actors, to the dismay of all of the actors, because they were just in a constant state of like not knowing what was going on. The script was changed the day before, production changed the day before. The actors and the crew have nothing but bad things to say about this film, unfortunately. Dennis Hopper said, quote, it was a nightmare, very honestly, that movie. It was a husband and wife directing team who were both control freaks and wouldn't talk before they made decisions.
Oh boy.
Anyway, I was supposed to go down there for 5 weeks and I was there for 17. It was so over budget. Bob Hoskins in 2011 said, quote, it was a fucking nightmare. The whole experience was a nightmare. It had a husband and wife team directing whose arrogance had been mistaken for talent. After so many weeks, their own agent told them to get off set. Fucking nightmare, fucking idiots.
Yeah, I think that was some of the stuff I remember.
Yeah. And it goes on and on. I mean, like, people don't have a lot of great things to say about this, but it's funny. Like I said, people who love this film love it, and the legacy's continued on. And even the filmmakers have said, like, for a long time I was embarrassed, but now I see that there's like an audience that appreciates it, and it's come back around in a really interesting way. Like you said, like you can't find this film online, and actually there have been like some VHS copies that even some of like the production VHS copies that were used by the directors and things for dailies have been retrieved, and now they're cutting and restoring and putting this film back together with like some deleted scenes. And
yeah, we should talk about that a little bit, because like that's been the internet thing that's been going around for a long time. They've been talking about this extended cut that was going to get released. Maybe
it's fairly recent too. It's like 2018 around that time is when it started.
Not a long, not a long time, but like recently I started hearing about it. That's one of the things that got it back like in my mind, is hearing about this extended cut. And you can watch it. There are places online where you can watch it, but it's not the official version, and it's not technically legal, but you can watch it, and there are some interesting things in there. But again, I hope that at some point it actually comes out as like a Blu-ray extended cut or something. It would be fun to actually watch it that way, but it seems like there would have to be some like actual work done to make it actually work as a movie, because watching the version that exists now, it definitely like music drops out, like it's not consistent. Some of the scenes are very unnecessary. So like, I don't know if you want to necessarily add back everything just because you can.
Yeah.
I was kind of educational, honestly, to see like what they were cutting sometimes. Like sometimes it was just like they would cut up like the beginning and end of a little sequence,
Yeah.
And you could see that they
Keep it
cut
tight.
just to shave off a few seconds here or there. And they did that constantly throughout to make everything run a little faster.
Yeah. So after not seeing the film for nearly 30 years, co-directors Rocky Morton and Annabelle Jankel were invited to attend a March 2023 screening at Quentin Tarantino's New Beverly Cinema in Los Angeles.
Oh, that's really new.
They told Variety that they thought there would be maybe 10 or 20 people there, but it was jam-packed. There were people queuing up around the block for extra tickets. During the screening, the audience was laughing and clapping at all the right places. Quote, "They weren't doing it ironically, it was genuine," said Morton. He says that screening washed away the stain of the movie bombing.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like genuine versus ironically, like it's like I think the distinction is like, are you genuinely having fun?
Are you enjoying yourself?
Or are you like mocking it? And I think people genuinely have fun watching a movie like this now because it's, like I said, it's unique. Like,
and there's always something to be said for uniqueness. There's always something to be said for something that stands apart from the crowd. And I in that sense, I like this movie, and that I do agree in that, but I can't find myself like recommending people check it out unless they're like, it's like going like some of the fun things that we do on this podcast is we're like archaeologists, like digging into things and watching things that maybe other people wouldn't. Yeah. And I think as part of a study like that, as part of if you're trying to consume and be a part of some of these conversations, totally check it out because it's fucking insane. Like you said, unlike many things you've seen before, and you get to see an unhinged Bob Hoskins and Dennis Hopper.
Man, if I had a young kid who just watched the new Super Mario movie,
you'd let them watch this?
I'd be like, let's throw in the original.
Yeah, right. That kid would they'd be like, Dad, there's strippers in this movie. Help me.
Hey, I watched it when I was 8. I turned out okay. Debatably, I guess.
Yeah, it's a fun watch. I mean, I'll say that I didn't not enjoy myself while watching it. I just think it's hard to even call it a movie. It's weird.
I mean, it is a movie. I watched it as a movie.
It's a movie, but let's say it's not an adaptation, is what it almost feels like. It barely feels like an adaptation.
Yeah, in the sense that they created a second original. They really did that with this one. We got to talk. Okay, there's just other insane details we got to talk about. Because I think that's part of the fun of this movie. So how about the decision to have the Mushroom Kingdom be this like gross slime that's everywhere that is actually the king, the former king, and he has like a fucking like
to like primordial ooze.
There's like a fucking asshole with like a little like thing that pops out and makes a farting noise when it comes out.
Yeah, dude, he's like fucking, what's it called? Prairie dogging. He's prairie dogging out of there.
And like the princess is like, "Come meet my dad."
She's like touching it and kissing him and stuff.
Yeah, she's I don't know if she kisses him, but she's into it. She's into it. She's like, "Come on, Dad. Like you could, don't be shy."
Luigi loves it too. He's like, "Great to meet you, sir." He's like trying to shake his hand.
And the whole time he's like, "Believe in the mushrooms."
Yeah.
And believe in the fungus. Is that what it is? Believe in the fungus.
Because he's trying to help us. He's trying to give us stuff.
Yeah. The Bob-omb sequence. I always love the Bob-omb sequence. Just because like everybody freaks out when he pulls it out. They're like Bob-omb, and they're all like running. It's this tiny little slow moving thing.
Yeah.
It walks for like a good 15 minutes solid in the movie before it finally explodes.
Yeah. Perfect timing for the explosion.
Of course.
I heard that there was a scene where they wanted the final sequence to be like climbing the Brooklyn Bridge and dropping a Bob-omb into Bowser or King Koopa's mouth.
Yeah.
Like exploding him from the inside.
So King Koopa basically becomes Bowser at the end, right? As he's de-evolved into like a Tyrannosaurus Rex, I guess.
I guess that's what it's supposed to be, yeah.
Yeah.
I just assumed the whole time he's Bowser, but yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, he is, but yeah.
Bowser is also king of the Koopa, so.
Right.
It's all the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, he is Bowser, but he like truly becomes the like Bowser we kind of recognize from the game.
Dino
in a
Bowser,
sense.
yeah.
Dino Bowser. I mean, and he looks fucking wild too when he turns into because I was thinking about how good Yoshi looks for like a little dinosaur. Like I think he looks really good. He looks like he's from the set of Jurassic Park.
And this was being filmed around the same time as Jurassic Park, and they were not the same production crews, but the people from Jurassic Park came over and they were like, "Holy shit! Like this is actually pretty good. If we need a B team to make some special effects, you guys could maybe jump in."
Yeah.
So that puppet too is absolutely crazy. It was capable of making 64 separate moves due to 200 feet of cable crammed inside its 3-foot tall structure. In all, no less than 9 puppeteers were used to operate it. And there were 4 versions of it that were built: a stand-in, a wireless model, a half puppet for the tongue, and a fully functional model. The fully functional puppet utilized 70 cables and 9 operators, and it cost $500,000.
Wow. I mean, Yoshi was a star, though. He was so cool. Like, I remember liking him as a kid. He even gets his like long tongue out one time, and he grabs Koopa's wife. I don't know what her name officially was.
Yeah, it's Aunt Petunia from Harry Potter.
Yeah, and she's running around doing villain stuff the whole time, and then she gets turned into a fossil.
Yeah, she gets like fucking vaporized basically by the...
Her bones go into the wall and turn into a fossil.
And her hair too, her hair like...
Her hair's part of it.
Pattern is there along the wall. So a meteor hit the Earth in New York apparently.
In Brooklyn, yeah.
In Brooklyn, killing off the dinosaurs, or actually, sorry, creating 2 alternate dimensions where one is like an alternate dimension
punched through the universe and opened up a portal
where
to
all
the
the
other
dinos
dimension.
go. Yeah. And so... not a lot of dinosaurs in New York City, I would assume, but I guess I don't know the history.
I
of
think
that.
I think there probably were, but I mean, like I don't know when they found the actual crater, you know, in like South America, and I'm not sure when they found that, but like I think it was later than this, so maybe they didn't actually know, but I don't know that they would have cared. You know, that's the whole thing is just like whatever.
No, it was just all in service of the story. So there's like dinosaur.
We had some interesting effects, man.
Interesting that you have to have a shard of the meteor to plug in, and then someone has to be worthy also to do it, and then you can...
Otherwise, they get turned into a fossil.
Merge the dimensions again.
Right. I guess. It's like don't worry about it.
I just like, I love that like people okayed this, right? Like people thought
it reminds
of this.
me a little bit of Johnny Mnemonic too, that we covered.
Yeah.
There's some similar kind of effect styles. That was also kind of cyberpunky.
Yeah, I read that the technology of the time for this movie too was pretty groundbreaking. Like they used some new techniques for effects and compositing and stuff. So there's that as well.
When they actually start like dematerializing to like merge into the other universe, like a lot of those look pretty good for '93. And then you got the sequence where they're shrinking the head, and you see it's like Toad, who's this like random musician, gets turned into a Goomba. That whole thing looks super funny and kind of bad, but like at the time was probably considered good.
So you want to hear some of the people who were on board for a little bit?
Sure.
Danny DeVito was offered Mario, and
okay, yeah, I could totally see that.
He was offered director. He could have directed this.
Well, that would have been a different movie.
Yeah,
interesting.
He's got a couple of good films under his belt as a director. I
mean,
think if we ever cover Matilda, I think he directed that.
Oh, did he? Yeah, I've seen that movie a bunch of times. Oh, the original, I should say, not the new one.
Arnold Schwarzenegger was on board to possibly play Koopa. So was Michael Keaton. And
honestly, the fact that they got Dennis Hopper or like anybody to play this role, such a weird time.
Dennis Hopper basically said that he did it for his kid because his kid at the time was young. And
okay, yeah.
Tom Hanks was considered for the role of Luigi, and but ultimately Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo. So have you heard about this? Leguizamo talking a lot about the new casting with Chris Pratt as Mario and some of the no. Okay, so he has come out, and I don't want to speak for him, but I've seen sort of headlines. I don't know all the details, but basically he feels that people of color or Italians or just in general minorities should be playing these roles, and he felt like Chris Pratt being Mario is kind of fucked up. And it brings up an interesting point because he talked about how Leguizamo back then talked about how Italians would play Latin people like Al Pacino and Scarface, and then he was a Latin person playing an Italian, and he was basically saying like, now it's our turn to Al Pacino, like sort of swapping it in that way. So yeah, interesting just to note that as well, because he's kind of been in the news again, and he's been asked like, would he be involved in another, and if they did a sequel to this animated, would he be involved? And I think he's basically said no, but then come back and said if they did right by everybody, they would. And he seems like he has like some strong, maybe he doesn't necessarily think that this movie is amazing, but he has some strong loyalty to it in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. I mean, it's it's live action. It's in many ways just very creative. I could see having an affection for it. The new one is like making $500 billion or something, right? It's like one of the most insane fast-selling movies ever.
I mean, I had a feeling that there was no way it wasn't going to make like $1 billion for sure. Just because like you look at it on paper.
What did I say? 500 million. 500 billion would be a lot. Probably not that.
Yeah. It's close to $1 billion. It'll cost $1 billion, no question. Yeah. But yeah, it's made to be successful. I think maybe there's something to be said for that. It's like maybe too marketable. It doesn't take risks.
I think that's why I'm not that interested in it. Just from what I've heard, is it's like.
Yeah, but I mean, dude, Jack Black is Bowser, and then we've got like Charlie Day. Like, there's tons of really
It's
like
a bunch of people doing voices. Like, you know, it is what it is, man. I don't know. I'm just not very interested in it, but I wouldn't be against seeing it. It just doesn't seem like it's something that's going to appeal to me.
I mean, I'm not rushing out to see it if that's any indication.
Yeah. There's a whole club sequence. They play Everybody Wants to Be a Dinosaur song.
Oh my god, the music in this movie is wild. There's a bunch of wild songs.
There's a whole
that they had
Koopa rap that got cut apparently, but it was the two guys, and they do this like whole Koopa rap. It's not very good.
But it was kind of like, and it started to get to the point where it was talking about the anti-fascism
Exactly,
stuff, right?
yeah. He was like going in on Koopa, and then that was like why he got arrested. Man, that whole club sequence. Like I loved the jump boots. I wanted them when I was a kid. Like I remember like wanting a pair of boots like that because it was so cool.
Again, I just don't. I guess I don't understand grabbing a property like Mario and then creating something out of thin air instead of using an existing power up.
Yeah,
I just don't get it.
Nobody
understand.
does, man. It doesn't make any sense.
Nobody even ate a mushroom. Nobody ate a mushroom and got bigger or stronger or anything.
There was no actual mushrooms. The only fungus in this movie is just like a weird, gross slime, and it's everywhere.
Yeah, the king.
There's no actual little mushroom caps that someone eats or something. Like you would think there would be that.
There were like mushroom caps off the side at one point, but it was all part of the fungus. Yeah, because he's pointing at it and he's like, "Oh, the fungus," and he's just talking about it.
Yes, it took me like several leaps to figure out why it was mushrooms, and then I'm like, I guess you eat mushrooms in the game, and I'm like, I guess that's why there's all this fungus everywhere.
Yeah, it looks gross too, by the way. If I do say,
yeah, it doesn't look at all like it does in the game. No ways, because fungi looks really interesting, and they didn't go for any of that.
Yeah, and I love the way that they got in like their references were just like signage. It was like Ba-Bomb whatever store, and it'd be like Koopa this, Goomba that, like signs and neon like Blade Runner signs all over the place.
Yeah, you play some music every now and then, a little bit of the video game music or a little sound effect. So many plumber jokes. Like there's just about being a plumber. Oh, it's a plumber's nightmare, and you gotta have your tool belt, man.
Love it. When I was a kid, I barely understood that Mario was a plumber.
Yeah.
Barely. Like, I think that's like, and maybe that's just me not interpreting it well when I was a kid.
Why would you? It's not like a big part of the lore that they like really lean into.
But he's like going down pipes. He's clearly looks like a plumber.
I mean, does he? Yeah. I don't know. He looks like Mario.
I guess kind of. Yeah. I don't know. Like a stereotype of a plumber, I guess. But besides that, I guess you're right. There's like no toilets involved. So
no, I don't know why you would know that he was a plumber. Oh man, it's so funny though, because like King Koopa like hates plumbers. He's like, damn plumbers, and like I think being a plumber is illegal. Like they arrest them for being plumbers.
Yeah, and he's like Bob Hoskins Mario is like very upset about it. He's like, this is un-American. He's like, I'm being arrested for being
like, this is America. You can't arrest me for being a plumber. You can't arrest him for singing a song. Yeah, there's that one part where they fly out of the tube on the mattress, and they fly across an entire open area. In a slow motion, like sailing, like it's supposed to be a kite, but it's like 7 people on a mattress.
So I read that stunt, by the way. They like rigged it. They had to rig all the actors in and everything, and then they went to lunch and then came back from lunch and like didn't do some of the re-rigging and ran it once. And like if any of the people, everybody stayed on the mattress, luckily, like through the whole thing, but at different times there are gaps off the side. And if somebody had fallen off at one of those gaps, it was like a 25-foot drop to concrete or something. And like, that's the kind of like, working conditions you can expect on the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Wow.
In 1993.
Yeah. I mean, the movie's unhinged. If you've never seen it, I don't know if you'll have the same affection for it that I do. Man, I feel like it's worth finding this movie to watch. At the same time,
if you're a movie fan and you're like me, you definitely want to have seen it sometime in your life.
Yeah,
I think that's
so
true.
Weird. Yeah, it feels like Total Recall. It feels like Ghostbusters, but definitely like a bad version of that.
the comedy isn't as good as something like Ghostbusters.
No, well, because it's not cleverly written. The writing is so bare bones. Like I noted at one point in time, the characters are running up to each other and saying like one word. Like he runs up and he's like Daisy, and then he goes meteorite, and then he goes tower, and then they look down and they're like garbage. And it's like that's like dialogue in the movie. Like they're just saying one word to each other, and I'm like, what is happening? And that's the kind of stuff that I think when you're getting these like day of rewrites, you're probably like, okay, we're just gonna do it and we're gonna deliver these lines. And you know, there's a lot of just really awkward sequences, but the production design is like better than it should be. You know, like it's someone cared enough. The whole sequence where they're like in these weird jail. And there's like all these like cages they're all in, and there's so many extras in this movie. Like how many extras are in this fucking movie? There's hundreds. And they're all wearing like outlandish costumes. There's a whole sequence where they're like zip lining through that prison, and they're like launching fireballs at them from these guns. It's so insane that even happens in this movie, because it's like clearly they were like, I guess that's kind of video gamey. Let's do it, you know? Like it's so weird. They immediately get the better of Koopa and like throw him in the de-evolution thing, and he gets like partly de-evolved. It doesn't. I don't know. Like his eyes start changing. Like, a little bit.
Felt like that was like an indication that he was already devolved or something. Like he was already like a certain amount devolved.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really weird. It felt like they were going somewhere with it, but then I guess it's just like foreshadowing what's going to happen later. But like it doesn't technically seem to change anything about him. He seems basically identical.
I just want to note, since we're gonna have to wrap up here in a second, this movie cost an estimated $48 million, and from what I could find, it made about 20 worldwide.
20 worldwide, yeah.
Yeah.
Not great.
From what I could tell.
Yeah, you know what I kept thinking about? We stayed in Brooklyn when we were in New York, and this movie references and talks about Brooklyn constantly.
I have been consuming so much New York-based content recently. Like I've been watching like Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, like a couple of movies here and there, and like it's like it keeps being like this street and that street and going through this subway and that, and I'm just have like such a familiarity because it's so fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was right back in it. I'm just like, look at all this. We were, there's a Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah.
There's this, there's that. Like all the things that we just saw. It's cool.
It was cool, man. When we were in New York, I remember feeling like I was on the movie set in some weird way. It's like I've seen New York through movies so much.
Like Mario, like Super Mario, like Dino Land.
Well, this and Ghostbusters and like a couple other movies in the 90s are why I felt like New York was such a, piece of my Americana knowledge, even though I'd never been there.
There's so much, man. Like I like Spider-Man, for me, like tons, so
Die
much.
Hard, not the first one, but I guess the third one is all in New York. Like there's a lot of just different movies set there that if you're an American, I feel like growing up watching movies, like you feel like you've been there even if you haven't.
Even not even Americans, I feel like everybody around the world feels like they've.
That's probably true.
Yeah. That's why it's got to be one of the most filmed locations in the world, or at least like meant to be. Whether it was shot in New York or not, is meant to be New York.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked about Gotham, right? Is basically New York. Batman. It's just it's iconic, man. And this movie, like, even though a lot of it is in this alternate dimension, it's an alternate dimension version of Manhattan. I guess, and it's wild. All right, we got to wrap this up. Thanks for sticking with us for this kind of strange episode, but we thought it would be kind of fun to do a video game one in this old movie. Hopefully,
maybe sometimes we'll visit back in and do like how for Scott Pilgrim we played the game. Maybe we'll play some Mario or something. That'd be fun if we find a chance.
I mean, I'm always down to play some Mario. Mario 3 was my favorite of probably.
Mario 3 is excellent.
I love Mario 3. I do. Super Mario World is fun. Mario 2 is really weird, but it has some cool stuff to it. Yeah,
the original is amazing. I think that it stands the test of time. You just like you pick it up, you jump on people's heads, and you go down tubes. Like it's just you can't beat it. Super Mario 64 also amazing. When we went three-dimensional 3D worlds, it started getting crazy.
I didn't play that one a ton. That's the one that I kind of skipped over, but. And I haven't played a lot of the new ones either. Like I never played Odyssey.
They just released. Oh, Odyssey's amazing too. But they just released. It's kind of hard to get because they did a limited run on it. But they released Super Mario 3D All Stars, and it's Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy, which are all for the Switch. So you can play some of those, and they've like, you know, up the graphics, and all 3 of those games are amazing.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, there's your little recommendation.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's wrap this up. Thank you all for continuing to support us, and until next time,
Keep adapting.